Welcome to Huff Goes to the Movies. My name is Eric Huffman II. Most people call me Huff, and some people know that I love going to the movies. John Wick Chapter 4 is in theaters now. The film opened up #1 at the box office with a franchise record $73 million. And this is a continuation of the previous film, obviously. John Wick is seeking revenge against the High Table. He has sort of been left for dead, and he is sort of an unwelcome man, a bit of a pariah in this world of assassins and hitmen, and he is on a mission now in order to get vengeance against them and to finally have a life of freedom. Now, the John Wick films up to this point have been defined by gun fu, as they call it, and super stylized fight choreography. The stunt sequences in these films continues to elevate. In the first film, it just was really fun to see Keanu Reeves laying all these bad guys to waste, and then as the films proceeded and the world building of the High Table and all these assassins and warriors started to expand, the action set pieces got bigger, but the choreography was always tight. And as they kept that style intact, it just made it for something that you could always get into. With the third film, they started to really expand the scope of what the High Table was all about, so we did some globetrotting, and while I have enjoyed all the John Wick films up to this point, Chapter 3 was the one where it felt like maybe this story doesn't quite have enough gas to keep going. I mean, I am here for Keanu Reeves and gun fu all day long. I will keep seeing these as long as they make them, but Chapter 3 to me was definitely not weak, but it was the weakest of the first three in my opinion. With John Wick Chapter 4, going into it, the big hang-up was definitely the runtime. For those who do not know already, John Wick Chapter 4 is 2 hours and 49 minutes long. I think it might be an hour longer than the original John Wick film. And for films that have such a simple setup and that are led by an actor like Keanu Reeves, who, let's face it, is not necessarily the world's greatest thespian, I was a bit concerned about just how much John Wick action could sustain me for this runtime. And to my surprise, not only is this film incredibly well paced, this is the best film in the franchise. John Wick Chapter 4 proves that a franchise doesn't have to run on fumes if it keeps going. This is director Chad Stahelski's 4th John Wick film. He has been here from the start, and I think you can really see it in the way that this world building continues to expand in ways that make sense. It doesn't feel like it's jumping the shark so much. The additions that we see to this world, the different nuances, the different bits of how these assassins communicate with one another, how they transfer information from one place to another. Those things feel like they make sense within this world. And when you expand the world building and you continue to treat these characters with respect, it allows for new players to come in and it allows for people to add their own dynamics to this action. And this film does feature quite the ensemble. Lance Reddick, rest in peace. Bill Skarsgard as a representative of the High Table and really the antagonist of the film. Clancy Brown, Hiroyuki Sanada, and of course the legend himself, Donnie Yen. I just can't imagine how this franchise could keep going without adding more dynamic actors and characters to the mix. And I think that really shows in the addition of Donnie Yen and his character of Kane. In the film, we find out that him and John Wick used to be friends a long time ago, but now he has things that he needs to take care of. He has his own priorities, and he doesn't really have it out for John Wick, but his hand is forced, and now these two characters who are the ultimate badasses are on this collision course. And in a film like this, where the action is very much the priority, you might think that things get a little exhausting before we get to that point, but what I love so much about the approach to this film is that they not only commit to the style to keep things interesting, but they stretch out the action sequences in a way that makes the film feel like it's really well paced. a lot of the action that we get here is happening in very extended sequences. So we're not just cutting from one scene to the next really quickly, but we're spending a lot of time in these places, and we're allowing the different rooms of certain venues to really up the ante when it comes to the fights. And I have to commend whoever's doing the production design on these films, because the overall style of the John Wick films, where they're set at night, they're set against the backdrop of a lot of neon lights, the way that they allow that style to transform a lot of these settings, I think makes for some really incredible moments, not just in the action scenes, but in the dialogue scenes. I mean, every shot of this film is just gorgeous to look at. And I cannot commend them enough for really prioritizing making sure that everything about this movie looks great. Not just the action, but the settings where the action is taking place. And I love how they utilize the various settings that we go into. And it's not just John Wick walking into a dark room, but we're getting John Wick having to explore city streets. We're getting these chase sequences playing out throughout all of Paris. We're going to different venues across Europe and in Japan and in New York. And I just really think that these films do prove that, yeah, sometimes your film needs to be style over substance. But just because you want your film to be style over substance doesn't mean that you can shortchange the style. And if anything, if there is anything that filmmakers take from John Wick, whether it's the gun fu, whether it's the world building, whether it's how to utilize an actor who may not be the greatest thespian, I hope that filmmakers are looking at these films for the style and the aesthetics that are on display. This was maybe the first John Wick film I could recall thinking, wow, this might deserve some Academy Awards consideration. The editing in this film is damn near flawless, and while I don't know that the cinematography is going to quite register all the way into the end of the year to be in that conversation, the way that they utilize the camera work here in some of these settings is breathtaking, dare I say. There is one scene that involves the camera looking from above while John Wick moves through this room and all these different doorways, and it just, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I was floored. John Wick Chapter 4 is a very violent, very stylish, very Keanu adventure. It is 2 hours and 49 minutes. And on paper, that could feel like quite the commitment. But I think once you're in it, you're not going to want to leave. This is everything that an action movie should aspire to be. One in which the stakes continue to get raised throughout the runtime of a film. One in which our hero, despite how much of a badass he might be, is always facing brand new challenges. And one where it makes us want to go to some of these places. Now, I don't want to go to Paris and start shooting everything up, but I do want to go to Paris now, and I do want to go to some of these places and go, wow, that's where John Wick completely slaughtered these dudes. Like, it really makes you want to be out and about in the world. Maybe not so much this world because it's a little dangerous, but like, it really is fascinating that they're taking some of these settings that might feel really mundane in any other movie, and they're flipping that on its head. They're making it feel like a really cool extension, a really cool sort of underground layer to the real world. And I just think that's awesome. And it's a gorgeous movie. Keanu Reeves was born to play this role. John Wick Chapter 4 is everything you could want it to be and more. It opens the door for this franchise to spin off in a variety of directions, and if the franchise is going to continue by focusing on new characters who also inhabit this world, then I think that John Wick Chapter 4 might have presented the strongest case for Lionsgate to pursue those ventures and opportunities. And with characters like Donnie Yen's character, or the Bill Skarsgård character, or the Tracker character, I didn't even mention him, the black dude who is after John Wick but is kind of also subverting some expectations in other ways, I'd love to see a mini-series about that dude. I just think that everything that this film provides opens up so many doors, and I think with the right filmmaking talent behind it, there is no reason why the John Wick franchise can't become sort of that next great shared universe, so to speak. So I am really excited to see whatever this team decides to do next. I am open to whatever. I thought that John Wick 4 was great. I was thrilled. If I do have to offer some criticisms, I will simply say that this franchise is starting to teeter into the Fast and Furious territory. Not that John Wick is going into space, but that some of the hits he's taking feel a little too hard, right? Like, no one should be getting up after falling out of a window, right? And no one should just be getting up so easily after getting hit by a car. It's a movie. It's John Wick. It's ridiculous. I can forgive it. But also, I worry that if this franchise continues, we might start seeing more occurrences of that. And while that would not necessarily make me dislike these movies, I could definitely see how that could come back to bite them just a bit. But that's a minor thing. John Wick Chapter 4 is great. It is one of the best movies I've seen all year. And if I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. But that's just me. What did you guys think of John Wick Chapter 4? I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you're planning on seeing it a few more times. I might be doing the same thing. But whatever it is, join me in the comments and let me know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon. That way you can stay up to date on everything that I've got going on here. Once again, my name is Eric Huffman II. Most people call me Huff. Stay sweaty, my friends. I will see you at the movies. Peace.